Hey guys, welcome back to the Seven Kingdoms and More channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, guys, please do. Again, this is it's mostly a Game of Thrones related channel, but I'm gonna start making some actual like medieval history videos at some point. So again, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. But today we'll be discussing the First Blackfyre Rebellion, how it started, the main players, which houses sided with which leader, and the outcome of the First Blackfyre Rebellion. Oh, and fun fact for you guys, and we'll get into this later in the video, but every single guy you see on the screen are brothers, so that's kind of fun. A lot of Targaryen brothers there. And the reason I wanted to do this video, guys, is because with the Dunk and Egg show coming out this summer, it will be a good tie-in with the show. During the first season of the show, they will almost most certainly mention and talk about the first Blackfyre Rebellion, like probably multiple times. I got my target, as you can tell, I'm probably on Team Darren. I got my Targaryen sigil. I don't really have any Blackfyre gear, so that's unfortunate. But with that, I got my beer for the day. We'll get right into it. We'll get right into it. Guys, I based this video off of The World of Ice and Fire, like the big book and like the history of Westeros. But this is the background. So King Aegon the Fourth, aka Aegon the Unworthy, was probably the worst Targaryen king in Targaryen king history. Here, Aerys the Second, because Aerys the Second did see the official fall of the dynasty. However, you could argue that Aegon the Fourth was the king that started the fall of the Targaryen dynasty. Aegon was born in 135 AC, a few years after the Dance of the Dragons. He was the first son to Viserys II and Laura Rogaire, and the grandson to Daemon and Rhaenyra. He was a lazy, lustful, and terrible ruler, and ascended to power in 172 when he was 37 years old, after his father, Viserys, had suspiciously died that year. Some people think that Aegon poisoned his father to become king, which that's fun. So he fathered many bastards, including Bloodraven, also known as Brynden Rivers, also known as the Three-Eyed Raven, and Bittersteel, also known as Aegor Rivers, as well as Shiera Seastar. Shiera was considered to be one of the most beautiful Targaryens to ever live, and she is the main reason there is a massive blood feud and hatred between Bloodraven and Bitterstool. Basically, they were both in love with her, and that's kind of how their hatred started. Another key point to point out here is Bittersteel's mother, who you can see in the below him, is Barbara Bracken, and Bloodraven's mother is Melissa Blackwood. So the Blackwood Bracken feud, which we know from House of the Dragon and even Game of Thrones, is a pretty big deal. So there's many reasons they hate each other, but the main reason would probably be they were both in love with their sister, Shiera Seastar, who was one of the four great bastards of Aegon the Fourth. So you can see these are the four great bastards, and below them are all their mothers. So feel free to read that and look at those fun pictures. But the most significant bastard Aegon sired was a man who would be called Daemon Waters, but one day would be known to the world as Daemon Blackfyre. Daemon's mother was Dana the Defiant, the sister of Baelor the Blessed, who was king of Westeros from 161 to 171. Um, so fun fact for you, Daemon Blackfyre actually comes from the bloodline of both Aegon III and Viserys II, the two children of Daemon and Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon. Aegon also had two legitimate children with his sister wife Nerys, Daeron II, and Daenerys. So Aegon would fill his court with lickspittles and sycophants, and his 12 years of ruling were totally disastrous. Just nothing productive or nothing good happened in the Seven Kingdoms during that 12 years. Again, was probably the worst king in Westerosi history. But nothing would compare to when he was on his deathbed and named all of his bastards, which he had many of, as legitimate Targaryens. So these are the four great bastards, but Aegon IV had like 16 bastards, basically. As one could see, this would be a total disaster. This would lead to generations of warring and bloodshed between the Targaryen line and the Blackfyre line. And we will see in the next part how Daeron II, or Daeron the Good, Aegon's legitimate son through his wife Nerys, had to deal with this. So, and another fun fact, real quick: Aegon IV knighting his bastard son Daemon Waters with the sword Blackfyre, thus the name the Blackfyres. He also, got Blackfyre. But let's get into Daeron II. Okay. King Daeron II, or King Daeron the Good, was much different than his father. He was thoughtful, pious, conscientious, and intelligent. The first thing he had to do when becoming king of Westeros in 184 AC was to undo a lot of the things his father did. He cleaned out the lick spittles in the Great Council, and excuse me, in the Small Council and the Gold Cloaks. Additionally, he knew he could not undo his father's ruling on the bastards being legitimized, so he tried to keep his half siblings close and to treat them well. He gave land to his brother Daemon in the Crown Lands and allowed him to marry Roanne of Tyrosh, which Aegon wanted him to do. Aegon has like a weird fascination with like Tyroshi and Lysine women because his mother was from Lys, and then he had a Shiera Seastar with a woman from Lys. Oh, for some reason he has kind of an obsession with that. Um, so the beginning of Daeron's reign went well and smoothly, and there seemed to be no trouble for the first few years. So that's good. However, a few years into his reign, roughly around 188 AC, he married Mariah Martell, which finally brought Dorne into the Seven Kingdoms through a marriage pact. So Daeron II was the guy who actually was the Targaryen king who actually got Dorne through a marriage pact into Westeros. Daeron would construct a great castle in the Dornish Marches called Summerhall to celebrate basically Dorne becoming coming into the Seven Kingdoms. And Summerhall, which has an insane history of itself, would take an entire video on its own. If you want to watch anything Summerhall related, Alt Shift X has a great video on the tragedy at Summerhall and the background of Summerhall. This seemed to be a victory on its surface, having Dorne, into the Seven Kingdoms. However, Dorne was still hated by many in Westeros, especially the houses in the Dornish Marches who had been warring against the Dornish for hundreds to thousands of years, including the Peaks of Starpike, the Dondarrions of Blackhaven, the Cairns of Nightsong, the Tarleys of Hornhill, and the Swans of Stonehelm. A lot of these houses did not like that Dorne joined Westeros, and it felt like Daeron was giving them special privileges that other lords did not get. For example, they could keep the title prince or princess. Another point of fact, Baelor Breakspear, who you see is the son of Daeron and Mariah Martell, was the first son, and Mariah had was the first son of Daeron, and Mariah had brown hair and brown eyes and looked very Dornish, not like a Targaryen. Not Mariah. So Baelor basically took on Mariah's, looks. We will see Baelor guys in the first season of the show that comes out this summer, so that's pretty exciting. You'll see a Dornish Targaryen. Another thing or something to consider with this show is the idea of non-silver haired Targaryens. It kind of hints at the idea that Jon is, yes, indeed, the son of Rhaegar. Additionally, you'll see in the upcoming show that Egg, or Aegon V, has to shave his head when wandering through Westeros because the Targaryen hair is so distinguishable and it can be dangerous if you're just wandering around Westeros. But that, again, is another video topic on itself. It's just something to think about. The tension would continue on for years until 195 AC when the First Blackfyre Rebellion officially began. Many of the less powerful houses and marcher houses saw Daemon Blackfyre as the true king of Westeros. He was a leader of men, a great warrior, and even wielded the legendary sword of House Targaryen, Blackfyre. Daemon was at first hesitant. He seemed to have love for his brother Daeron and did not want to start a war, but was convinced by people like Bittersteel to do so. He convinced him that he was the true king of Westeros. So the Black Dragon went to war with the Red Dragon, and the official Second Targaryen Civil War starts. It's not technically considered a civil war like the Dance of Dragons, but because the Blackfyres are kind of considered like a different family almost than the Targaryens, if that makes sense, where Aegon and Rhaenyra and the Dance of the Dragons were both just like true Targaryens. Anyways, let's get into the next part of this. All right, so the war begins. Who sides with who? So before we get into what happens in the war and the last battle at the Red Grass Field, it is important to note which houses sided with which rulers, because with this war, you can see a pretty clear pattern. The great lords like the Starks, Lannisters, Arryns, Tullys, Martells, Tyrells, and Baratheons wanted to keep the status quo, so they sided with Daeron and the Targaryens. The Greyjoys were just being the Greyjoys and stayed neutral throughout the First Rebellion, which is kind of a typical thing they do. They tend not to like join a side until they know who's going to win. You see that, for example, in Robert's Rebellion, and there's other examples of that. The Greyjoys just being the Greyjoys. It is also important to note that House Blackwood, the House of Bloodraven, also sided with Darren. It is also important to mention that not only the great houses sided with Darren, but some of the smaller houses did as well, such as the Fossways in the Reach, the Mallisters in the Riverlands, and the Leffords in the Westerlands. And there's more of examples than that. You can refer to the map in the left to see for more details. I based this map a few weeks before the battle at the Redgrass Field. It's pretty objective. There probably are maybe some mistakes in there, but or some like subjective takes I have on this map, but it's probably about 90% accurate. On the other side, the less powerful houses who wanted to gain more power and status sided with Daemon and the Blackfyres. These houses included the Brackens of Stonehenge, the Peaks of Starpike, the Yornwoods of Yornwood, and that's actually in Dorne. They're kind of like the Yornwoods are like the second most powerful house in Dorne behind the uh, Martells, excuse me, and the Peaks are actually Marcher Lords. The Brackens we know are in the Riverlands, and the Dondarrions of Blackhaven, which are also Marcher Lords, the Rains of Castamere, and the Tarbecks of Tarback Hill, as well as the Butterwells of White Walls. So actually, originally. The Butterwell Lord, I'm forgetting his first name, was a hand to Darren, but Darren basically mistrusted him and got rid of him, and then he sided with the Blackfyres. And obviously, the Rains and Tarbecks are like at this time the second and third most powerful houses in the Westerland, so they want to seize power over the Lannisters. It is also important to note that the Ambroses and the Balls in the Western Reach, as you can see in the map, which is just look in the black area, you can see Ambrose and Ball, where their castles are, were avid supporters of Daemon. In fact, Quentin Ball, who we'll talk about later as well, of House Ball, who you can see, was supposed to be a Kingsguard of Darren, but that did not happen. He and Bittersteel were essentially the two main people who convinced Daemon to go to war against Darren. You can see, again, you can see him pictured in the top right. Additionally, it is not explicitly said, for example, if the High Towers sided with Daemon, but I just made an assumption that they did so they could become the official ruling house in the Reach over the Tyrells. It would make sense to me that the High Towers would have actually sided with Daemon. But now that we know which houses sided with whom, we can get into the war itself, and specifically the culmination of it at the Battle of the Redgrass Field. Okay, guys, this is going to be kind of detailed. This is the war and the Battle of the Redgrass Field, so this is going to be a lot of information, so hopefully you think it's interesting. So in late 195 AC, Daemon Blackfyre had decided to rashly call his banners and begin the war. Daemon had followers all across Westeros in various kingdoms, but his base camp was near the Blackwater and the Crownlands. I would assume around 50 to 100 miles west of King's Landing. Bloodraven gave the news to Darren, and Darren sent the Kingsguard to arrest his half-brother Daemon Blackfyre. However, Quentin Ball had managed to help Daemon escape. So I'm assuming at this time Daemon was in King's Landing, which I don't totally get why he would be like pronounce that I'm going to go against my brother when I'm in King's Landing. That part didn't really totally make sense to me about it. But yeah, Darren sent his Kingsguard, but Quentin sneaks him out, and Daemon escapes. Most of Daemon Blackfyre's core supporters, however, were concentrated in the Reach and the Stormlands, as you can tell by this map. A lot in the southern Stormlands, he has a lot of followers. He also had followers in like Essos, as you can see. I marked that down black in the Stepstones because his mother and his wife were both from. Well, his mother was from. No, excuse me. His grandmother was from Lys, and his wife was from Tyrosh, so he had connections in Essos. Primarily among the border, so again, so most of Daemon's Blackfyre's core supporters were concentrated in the Reach and the Stormlands, primarily among the border lords with strong anti-Martell sentiment who resented the new peace with Dorne. Daemon did not manage to openly control enough Daemon did manage to openly control enough territory at some point during 195, 196, so that he actually printed his own coin. Battles were fought between the rebels and loyalists in other places like the Val, Westerlands, Riverlands. Quentin Ball attacked the Westerlands, killing Lord Lefford of the Golden Tooth. Fun fact, we did see the Golden Tooth and a Lord Lefford in season 2 of House of the Dragon when Jason Lannister marches. They're like allies, strong allies with the Lannisters, so we did see the Golden Tooth. But continuing on, at the crossing of the Mander, Quentin slew all of Lady Penrose's sons. Lord Leo Tyrell participated in the First Blackfyre Rebellion as well, fighting on behalf of House Targaryen. So the Tyrells, of course, were on House Targaryen's side. He won notable victories in the Reach against Daemon Blackfyre. So the Tyrells were, causing some damage in the Reach. On the eve of the Redgrass Field, Fireball was slain in a chance encounter, picked off by a random archer when he stopped for a drink of water. At the same time, Bittersteel, Lord Bracken, Aegor Rivers, went across to the Narrow Sea to find sellswords to reinforce the Blackfyres, but storms delayed his return, and so that kind of was a problem. The final conflict of the First Blackfyre Rebellion was the Battle of the Redgrass Field in late 196 AC as Daemon the First Blackfyre's rebel army approached King's Landing. Lord Leo Tyrell's forces could not gather quickly enough to arrive in time for the battle. Lord Donald Aaron, real quick fun fact, I'm pretty sure Leo Tyrell actually, guys, is the baby that is like a baby during the beginning of the Dance of the Dragon. So I'm pretty sure his mother was his like regent, but Leo Tyrell was just born at the beginning of the Dance of the Dragon. So that's kind of a fun fact. So he'd be pretty old this time. He'd probably like 60, 65. Um, Lord Donald Aaron led the vanguard of Targaryen forces, but Daemon shattered his line. So again, we're in the battle itself, leaving the loyalists in peril until Sir Gawain Corbray of the Kingsguard arrived with reinforcements. Gawain and Daemon came face to face during the battle, with each wielding a Valyrian steel sword, Blackfyre by Daemon and Lady Forlorn by Gawain. Their duel is said to have lasted an hour before Daemon, gained the upper hand and wounded Gawain. Um, so Daemon ended up beating Gawain Corbray. And another fun fact for you guys: Corbrays are known. They're a house in the Reach just north of the Vale of Arryn, and they're kind of like a house known to be like great warriors. Like one of the greatest warriors during Aenys and Maegor's time, for example, was a Corbray. In the meantime, Brynden Rivers, with his archers, known as the Raven's Teeth, which is pretty sick, had captured and assumed a position atop the Weeping Ridge, which overlooked the battle. Daemon's heir, Aegon, died first, so Daemon had a son named Aegon. He got murdered by the Raven's Teeth, followed by Daemon himself. So actually, Bloodraven is the one to have actually killed his half-brother, Daemon Blackfyre. When Daemon's second son, Aegon's twin brother Aemon, took up Blackfyre, he was slain as well. So Daemon again had Aegon and Aemon, and they both died. The rebels began to rout, but Sir Aegor Rivers claimed Blackfyre and rallied the rebels by leading a charge against the Raven's Teeth. In the ensuing duel, Aegor took out Bryndon's eye, so that's how Bryndon, Bloodraven, has one eye from his half brother, Bittersteel. However, Baelor Targaryen, Baelor Breakspear, the son of Daeron and Mariah, who we will see in the show A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, arrived with a host of Dornish spearmen and Stormlanders, while his younger brother Prince Maekar, fun fact, Maekar is the dad of Aegon V, who you'll see in the show as Egg, and he's the dad of Aemond Targaryen, who is the maester at the Night's Watch at Castle Black under Jon. So Maekar is the dad of Aemon and Aegon V. Baelor crushed the rebel army against Maekar's shield wall, a move later called the Hammer and the Anvil. So Maekar and Baelor were brothers, and they were the sons of Daeron and Mariah, and they were both just like badasses. That's pretty important. I'm not going to spoil anything, but Maekar and Baelor, anyways, that's going to be end of season 1. Don't want to spoil anything. The size of the armies participating in the Battle of the Redgrass Field is not exactly known. It is guessed that about 10,000 men died and many more were wounded. While the state of the rebellion across all of Westeros is unknown, many widely believed that the fate of the realm hung in the balance at Redgrass Field, and had Daemon won that battle, he probably would have gone to King's Landing and win the entire war. So the Battle of the Redgrass Field is pretty close to King's Landing, and it's in the Crownlands. It's basically right in between the Blackfyre camp and King's Landing. And if he had won that war, he would have marched on King's Landing. King Daeron II Targaryen's punishment of the rebels was harsher than had been previously expected of him. Those who had supported Daemon Blackfyre lost lands, titles, or wealth, and all were forced to give hostages. Gormund Peak had to give three of his castles as well as some of his sons. Sir Eustace Osgray, who's actually important because you'll see him in season 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, lost three sons that had died upon the Redgrass Field and had to give up his daughter Alysanne as a hostage and lost a great amount of land to House Weber. Again, Eustace Osgray and House Weber will be pretty important in season 2 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Aegor Rivers was able to recover the sword Blackfyre from the battlefield and escape to the Free Cities, together with Daemon's widow, I don't even know how to pronounce her name, Kaya Blackfyre, and remaining children, eventually ending up in Tyrosh. Daemon's descendants continued their struggle for the Iron Throne in exile as the Blackfyre Pretenders. And the First Blackfyre Rebellion left its mark upon Westeros for years. Asking a man whether he had fought for the Black Dragon or the Red was considered a dangerous question. So again, you'll see that theme a little bit in the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, like who like you'll hear the term like Red Dragon and Black Dragon. And it's like it's kind of like a stigma to say I fought for the Black Dragon because that was like Daemon in the losing side. So the show A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms will begin again, guys, in 208, 209 AC, 12 years after the war. During the first season, they will discuss this famous war and battle, I'm sure, many times. And let's just say this is one of the many Blackfyre rebellions that will plague the Targaryen dynasty all throughout the third century of the Targaryen rule. With that, that is pretty much my summary of the first Blackfyre Rebellion. Again, there's many more. We don't really have a lot of details on the third and fourth Blackfyre Rebellion. You'll actually get to kind of see what's going on. I'm not going to spoil anything with the second Blackfyre Rebellion in season 2. No, that'd be probably season 3 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And the fifth Blackfyre Rebellion actually takes place like when Tywin and all those guys are alive, and it kind of there's a lot of connections with the fifth Blackfyre Rebellion and Game of Thrones, but again, that takes its whole video itself. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Again, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you can. We've got more content coming out about Knight of the Seven Kingdoms that'll again premiering in the summer, and the Blackfyre Rebellions at whole. And also, guys, if you want to watch, I will give a shout out to Alt Shift X again. People probably know him if you're a Game of Thrones fan. Great YouTuber, but he has a great video on all the Blackfyre Rebellions. It's only a half an hour long, and he does a great job. I think it's honestly one of the best Game of Thrones YouTube videos I've seen. But anyways, that's it, guys, for me. Thanks again, and please like and subscribe.